Hey, thanks for tuning in. This is Donkey Kong Country 3. I'm Matt. Blanking out pretty hard right now, I'm not gonna lie, but don't want to spend too much time here on the main screen. This is DKC3 for the GBA. So, if you're familiar with DKC3, then some of this might be a bit of a shock to you because it looks way different and sounds way different than what you may know on the Super Nintendo. But I'll get into that. The GBA version has changed up a couple stuff, way more than it did for Donkey Kong Country 1 and 2 for the Game Boy Advance. And it's probably for the better. I don't want to stick too much time like staring at menus and stuff. I just want us to get moving because that's what we're here for. Don't want to be condescending with the details. Like, you're watching this, you probably know what a Donkey Kong is and what the Donkey Kong Country series is. This is the third one. Most people don't like the third one as much as the first two, although I think it depends on the order you played them in. In my case, I played them Donkey Kong Country 1 and 2 were basically at the same time, and then 3 happened in the mid-2000s. And the first version I played was the Game Boy Advance version, which may be for better or for worse. I think it's alright. I harsh on it sometimes, but this game's okay. If some people who are super familiar with how these games control, you'll notice that the Kongs move pretty slow. That's because, for whatever reason, they totally changed the physics of these games. Maybe the Game Boy couldn't handle it. And as a result, if you hit an enemy once with your roll, it means that, you're not gonna get that speed boost like you would in the Super Nintendo games. And the soundtrack's different, too. They actually got David Wise to come back to compose the soundtrack, which is pretty interesting, because David Wise composed this, way after he did Donkey Kong Country games originally, and you can kind of tell how his style has changed since then. To be pretty upfront here, even though I'm going after bonuses and stuff, I'm not trying to 100% the game. It's more just if it's there, I'll do it for the sake of doing it. But 100% of Donkey Kong Country 3, I don't know this game to an extent of this is a game that takes a physical part of my brain space, unlike 1 or 2. And it's I don't know if this game really needs to be 100%ed. The elephant's gone, so that's pretty funny. I didn't mean for that to happen, but okay, we'll talk about the elephant later. Great. Yeah, you could have been gone there. And yeah, 100%ing it is it still has DK coins and bonus coins and some other stuff, but the bonus stuff is still similarly the same, and the DK coins are so locked into their gimmick that it makes collecting them more of a hassle than it is well, not a hassle, but it's nowhere near as creative, I feel as it was in DKC2. Now, the Donkey Kong Country 3, we have Kiddy Kong there. You know who Kiddy Kong is, right? He never shows up again, as far as I know, because people hate Kiddy Kong because he's a giant baby monkey. Fun fact, Kiddy Kong actually kind of scared me when I was a kid. When he'd get hurt. You'll probably see this sometime in later videos when I'll probably die more. When Kiddy Kong dies, he starts yelling and slamming into the ground. And there's something about that really terrified me as a child. To be specific, even though I said I didn't play DKC3 until the mid-2000s, my brother rented it in the mid-90s, and that's when the game scared me. But that's literally all I remember about it, is Kiddy Kong scaring me, and that there was a level with bees that also scared me. But speaking of what's going on actually here itself, these mill levels are pretty decent. like I said, the music was changed, and I think the music in the mill levels is actually better in this version of the game than it was in the Super Nintendo version. I think that's the case for a lot of them, actually. Not all of them, mind you, but most of them. And the mill track in particular, I've only just recently hearing it again. I appreciate it a lot more. No, we're not going to go there yet. Cranky's Dojo and other stuff is actually, like, mandatory to 100%, but I'm not going to do it yet. Here's something that's crazy. Like, these bears? Like, look at this guy. Like, where did this... First two games didn't have anything like this, and now it's like, hey, I want a side quest, here you go. Also, have a bird if you, like, get me a girlfriend. Peace, Kongs. Here's a flower. I'm never gonna visit this guy again. He's kind of seems like a... kind of doesn't seem like the best bear in the world, but... Yeah, I think one of the... Stuff like that makes me feel like people don't like DKC3 as much is because... Ooh, let's switch and do a cool thing here. It feels like the world in this game is not as consistent compared to, like, the transition between 1 and 2. Like, 2 was pretty crazy because it had, like, pirates and shit, and it got all grimdark. As grimdark as, like, a K through A game can get, I guess. But a lot of things still stayed the same. There were, like, Kremlings, and, like, there was K. Rool, and he was a bad guy. And that was all you had to worry about. Here, though, like, they add a bunch of stuff. Like, a lot of the enemies, like, look like they're made out of clay. And, like, there's such a weird variety of them and a variety to the landscape that it all kind of feels jumbled together. Like these bees, for example. They don't look the same as the bees in the first two games, and people have their theories about it, and they're actually probably, like, valid theories. But it, you know, they look so much more goofier, and you know how people can be, especially, like, fans of a series. They can sometimes hate it when things start getting goofy. I'm actually surprised I made it up to that bonus. You're supposed to do Kiddy Kong's jump trick with that, which is stupid, but I didn't have to do it. I think Donkey Kong Country Returns had a similar issue. I still haven't actually played Donkey Kong Country Returns yet. It's, I never got a Wii or a Wii U. I do have a 3DS though, but I heard it's garbage on 3DS. And, like, some people don't like that game because, the enemies aren't Kremlins anymore. They're, like, tiki people and walruses. Which actually kind of sounds cool when I say it out loud like that. But, you know, people want to stick to tradition. Like, okay. Oh, it's all of a sudden, there's snow. And it's called Skidda's Row. Who's Skidda? Well, actually, these guys are Skiddas, I think. I'm not totally sure. There's still some Kremlins here, like, but they look so much dumber. I don't know. And it's not even a matter of, oh, they're on the Game Boy Advance, so of course they look dumber. Like, no, like, even in, like, the original game, they look pretty dumb, and they didn't make the noises, like, the noises they make now, like those, like, high-pitched, nasally noises, those were changed for Game Boy Advance. And they've been like that since Donkey Kong Country went for Game Boy Advance, for whatever reason. Hope I don't... Okay. I really don't look forward to failing a bonus game in these videos, and you'll see pretty clearly why when it happens. But yeah, now it's snowing, like, who cares? Like, let's just have a snow level with some guy yodeling. I think the Super Nintendo music for these stages is better. This is an example of the Super Nintendo having the better stage. I wish I could remember the name of the composer that did the songs, but her name, I think it was a woman, her name escapes my memory, and I think David Wise contributed to like 2 songs, and then she did everything else by herself. Don't fact check me on that, though. I just like this German tune, which, you know, that could be your jam if you want it to be. I'm not about it, though. It just doesn't feel like it belongs here at all, though. Now that I think about it, it sounds a lot like a song in Diddy Kong Racing, which the Diddy Kong Racing snow levels had music similar to that. I don't know if David Wise did the track for that. I assume he did, because he does almost everything related to Donkey Kong at this point. Here's an elephant. Boy, people don't like this elephant. I didn't like this elephant. I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of her. Her name is Ellie, and she's supposed to be the replacement to Rambi, who was the rhino in the first 2 games, if you didn't know. And it's a pretty poor replacement. She's nowhere near as much of a powerhouse as Rambi was. And, like, for example, she can't, like, charge into enemies and hurt them. She needs, like, barrels to hit enemies with. And, she gets scared by mice. That's actually the whole gimmick of this stage. Like, if Ellie sees a mouse in, like, light, then she gets, like, scared and runs off. And when you're scared, you can actually be vulnerable. And it can get hurt. Which is it's a cute idea. Like, don't get me wrong, like, it's a cute thing. It's just, like, sometimes determining what counts as being in light and what doesn't can be a little confusing. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm not as angry about Ellie as I used to be, I guess. Again, it's just another example of, like, how drastically the style changed from 2 to 3, and I think Ellie just represents that style very clearly. That drastic shift. Oh, I don't know how I got that guy, but sure, yeah, that's totally fine. We can... That's how easy it is to get DK coins in this game. Honestly, though, there's way more important things to be mad at, probably. And also, this game happened, like, 50 million years ago at this point, so... you can probably get mad at other things. Barrels... And, you know, here's another thing that bugs me, is, like... This is the first time that barrels in these games start respawning. And it comes off as very artificial, like, it makes it feel that much more video gamey. Whereas in the first 2 games, it was like, you had a limited number of barrels, right? And you could use those barrels if you wanted to, and if you didn't, you messed up. And that was the way of the world. But in this case, it's like, no, we can't have them screw up, just have barrels poof out of nowhere. Which is weird! That's a weird thing to do. Like, it was like almost unsettling to me when I first played the game to just have barrels pop up. I thought I was cheating. Oh, this is not good at all. Oh, I don't like this. Ellie's not a good jumper. Alright. These are the easy bonus stages, kids. These are the ones. These are the easy ones. This is the hardest one. This game's a lot like DKC2. You start with a gimmick, and they just up the gimmick as much as they can before the end of the stage. Pretty straightforward level design stuff. A lot like DKC2, but people still don't like it as much. Hold on. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That's the secret. Oh, Swanky's Dash. We'll see Swanky's Dash. That's a stage. And there's the first boss. It's a big old barrel. Burps. And then you gotta feed him bugs. I'm actually really bad at this boss. Like, this might take a while. We'll see. Sometimes it takes me 5 seconds. Sometimes it takes me 5 minutes. Let's hope it's the former. Because there's not much more to this guy than what you're seeing here. To be fair, it's creative though, right? Like, it's a way more creative boss than, like, a big bird or a giant gopher you have to jump on 6 times. Like, this has tension to it in some way. I mean, if you didn't see it, like, you know, there's that over there. Like, that's a bad scene. Is he just gonna keep chomping if I let him chomp? There we go. This is my favorite part, the boss. There you go, jumping on his head. Hey, Cranky says some stuff, but like, whatever, it doesn't really matter. That's the first world of DKC3 Orangutanga. Hopefully this video isn't a mess. Thanks for watching, though. I don't know what the next world name is, but I guess we'll find out. It's like Forest or something. Deuces.